there's no big intro required, as it's me for the next 50 minutes or so. If you are coming in late, well, you're not late, but just come on, there's loads of seats down here, so don't feel the need to stand at the back for the whole thing. This is a new presentation, so if there is any glitches or any lumps or bumps in the road, I do apologize. It's called 5 Simple Steps to Developing a Digital Marketing Strategy. It was followed, if you went on the website and read the blurb, by all of this, which I'm not even quite sure what it means, so I tried to pick out some of the highlights of it. And boiling them down into what hopefully we'll cover today is a 5-step process. Why is that important? Systematic, methodical, repeatable. When we do digital marketing at the Tomorrow Lab, we're very much a process-driven company. We're ISO accredited, and what we find is that having a process means you can be systematic with it, but also the end point there, it's repeatable. If you find something that works, you can repeat it over and over again. So process is really important in marketing. It's very boring. It's probably the most boring part of marketing, but it is one of the most important. I would argue probably the most important. Strategies that perform, that was picked out. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, we're all here, we're all probably working for companies that are looking to achieve certain objectives. Even charities are looking to achieve certain objectives. Your strategy has to perform. There's no point in just having it because you think it looks nice or because you want to do it. It has to perform. A-Star, we love a cheesy name. I don't think we do. I love a cheesy name because it helps people to remember. I'll explain what A-Star is. That's the name of the 5-step process. Global multinationals to small local firms, there is something in this for everyone. The process, you can use it no matter what size of firm that you have. And ongoing and successful. Being good once isn't enough. Being good once is great, but you have to keep doing it over and over and over again. Because nobody's ever hit a target in business and then the managing director's gone, that's fantastic, don't worry about hitting another target ever again. If you hit a target once, you've got to keep hitting it again and again and again. So, I've been up here for a couple of days now, and I haven't really had much chance to talk about me, so I just want to do that a little bit first. People have been asking, I work for the Tomorrow Lab. You'll see the Tomorrow Lab stand. I was directing people there for beer yesterday, and you can have beer after this presentation there as well. But I'm also wearing a Collab t-shirt. I've been talking about Collab a little bit. This isn't a big sales pitch for us. The Tomorrow Lab is a digital agency. We build websites, we do content marketing, search, PPC, SEO, all of those sorts of things. Collab is slightly different. The easy and quick way to describe the difference is that Tomorrow Lab will create a strategy for you and then implement it. Collab will teach you how to create your own strategy. That's the broad difference. There is a little bit more nuance to that, but as I'm not going to spend an hour talking about that, that's enough. I've been running around the marketing world for about 15 years now. Worked at Durham County Cricket Club, worked at UTV, Newcastle College, which is the biggest college in England, or was at the time. And I've been in agencies for the last 5 or 6 years. And what we found at the Tomorrow Lab, the big difference there, it goes back to that process. What I learned when I moved there was if you have a process, you can make all the greatness and all the genius that you have work harder and work again and again and again. There we are. That's the Tomorrow Lab. What a beautiful bunch of people there. We'll get that off before any of you start crying. And there's a number of the clients we start working with. If you want to find out more about the Tomorrow Lab, there's a whole bunch of people around there who can have a chat with you when we've finished. The thing you want to take away from that, it's not look how good we are, it's the variety and the size of companies that we work with. There is something in this for everybody. So, A-Star. Ooh, my fonts have gone. That's okay. A-Star stands for Audit, Strategy, Tactics, Activity, Review. We have argued long and hard, should review be results? I don't really care. I'll probably say results, I'll probably say review, depending on what time of day it is. But that's the 5 steps we're going to look at. Audit, strategy, tactics, activity, results. And that's why, first of all, why we love a cheesy name. Everybody in our team can remember what A-Star means. If you give it some obscure name, nobody remembers it. If nobody remembers it, nobody uses it. So give it something easy to remember. So we'll start with A-Star. I'll take you through each element of this with a few examples as we go. So the first part is audit. I love business quotes. I love people who post business quotes on Instagram, and I love reading them. So I've put a load in this presentation as well. First of all, Abraham Lincoln, who seems to say every quote on the internet. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Auditing is important preparation. If you don't audit, if you don't know what's happening when you start, you're just guessing as you start to go down the line. So we use the 7 C's process. Now, many of you will have heard me talk about the 7 C's at length many, many times. I'm just going to briefly touch on them here to give you a bit of an understanding of why we use them in the auditing process. There was a 7 C's presentation yesterday. I don't know if anyone saw Steve do his. His is a clearly inferior 7 C's process. This is much better. I had that discussion and that argument with Steve last night. So the 7 C's: company, customer, context, competition, competence, content, and capital. The starting point and the most important parts of this are the first 2, company and customers. Marketing has to come from the inside of the business. You can't just bolt on something on the outside of the business and go, this is cool marketing. If you don't know what you do as a company, if your mission as a company isn't understood by your team, if what you think it is as marketing is different to what the people think it is who are doing delivery, or what your sales team are doing, then everything starts to fall to pieces. What needs to happen is that your marketing messages need to match the experience that your customer's going to get. There's no point being fun and interesting and dynamic and controversial on social media if when people interact with your company, you're boring, traditional, and they're just a bit dull. Because you're making a promise over here and you're not delivering on it when they interact with you. And that's how you start to get bad reviews. The guys from Trustpilot, I have a very simple view on how you get good reviews in business. You make people a promise and you deliver on it. It's that simple. Make them a promise and deliver on it. But if you don't understand what that promise is you're delivering, and when you say to people, which businesses here have got a mission statement? Who's got a mission statement in their business? Now keep your hand up if you absolutely know what that mission statement is in your business. And you see the hands start to drop, and people go, yeah, I know what the business mission statement is, but if you don't know what it is, how can you be creating content if you're doing content marketing? How are you supposed to make the promise that the customer's going to get delivered on if you don't know what that mission statement is, or if the people creating that don't know what the mission statement is? We ask companies all the time, what makes you different when we're talking about companies? And they always say, well, 8 out of 10, our people make the difference. Brilliant. Let's go and have a look at your social media. What's on there? Product, 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 product. Right. So if your people make the difference, if your people are the reason why people buy from you, why aren't they all over your social media? Where are they in your advertising? Why aren't you using them there? You're making a promise and you're not delivering on it. And that's where you start to get bad reviews. So really understand what the company means, and then you'll be able to start delivering on that. The next, equally as important, is customer. If you were here yesterday and you saw, I've completely forgotten his name, the guy from Fathom, Gareth, talking about start with the customer and work backwards. This is really important. We create personas, lots of you probably already do it, where we caricature your ideal customer. Create a persona about them, understand why they buy from you, what they buy from you, what their problems are, and how you solve their problem. We'll talk later on about creating content that's fab. And if you can start to solve people's problems with fab content, I'm not just going on 1980s, fab stands for something. If you can solve people's problems with fab content, you'll start to really drive your business past what everybody else is doing. You stop talking about we're a little bit cheaper or we're a little bit better. Start talking about we can solve this problem that you have. And it makes a big difference to how that works. So really spend the time understanding your customers. We look at qualitative and quantitative data. That's the last time I'm going to say those two, because it takes me a bit of time to not spit all over everybody doing that. But don't just look at the numbers. The numbers are really important, what your analytics are telling you, what your stats are telling you. But social research is just as important. If you have a business where you see people, go and have a look. Study them, watch them, see who comes in, talk to people who are on the front line, whether that's a sales team, whether that's people answering phone calls, whether that's people in the store. You need to see that as well. Just looking at the data doesn't tell you everything. Just looking at who's coming in and buying stuff doesn't tell you everything. You need to triangulate between all the different data sources that you have, and then start to pull together these personas. That work should never really stop. You should be reviewing it on a 3-month basis or a 6-month basis, depending on your business. Context, much easier. Any legal, any regulatory issues, you probably know them already. If you're in financial services, you've got to put 3 pages of details underneath anything you mention. Some businesses don't sell cross-border, some businesses do. How's Brexit going to impact you? All of those things come into context, but if you don't look at them, they're easy missed. Competition, again, fairly obvious. Most people look at competition, but let's not just look at who the obvious competitors are. I hear it probably 1 in 3 times. We don't really have a competitor. Nobody sells this with pink knobs and whistles on it. I don't care, because your customers don't care. Just because theirs is blue and yours is pink doesn't necessarily make it all that different. Think about what the customer problem is and how that's being solved. And if it's solving the same problem, they're a competitor. But we also look at search competitors as well. So who else, if you type in your company name or your products or your services, who else is appearing in there? And we get a lot of companies, certainly in Northern Ireland, who say, here's our competitors, and it's the 3 companies they can see. And they completely disregard anybody who's maybe in England and say, oh, well, they're an English company. But if they're dominating search on page 1, they're your competitor as well. So you need to take a wider view of who you mean by competition. Competence, that's what skills have you got? What have you got in-house? Who can do what? What agencies do you work with? Who's happy to do that? There's no point saying, Twitter guy said, we've got to do more video. Brilliant. YouTube guy said, we've got to do more video. We're going to do more video. Who's going to appear in it? My glamorous assistant, the lovely Debbie McGee over there, will sort it out for us, I hope. So there's no point saying, we're going to do this, and then not having anyone who can do it. Nobody wants to front the video campaign. So you've really got to understand what skills you have in-house. With this as well, be brutally honest with yourselves. Because if you're being brutally honest, some people say, we've got copywriters in-house, or we've got a graphic designer, and you really don't have, or we've got Jimmy likes taking photographs, and what you actually mean is Jimmy's got a camera. It doesn't mean he's any good at it. So be honest there as well. When you get to content, link it back to the beginning. What did you say in company was the thing that set you apart? Is it your people? Great. So what content do you have about your people? We're not talking about creating your content marketing strategy there. We're looking for stories that we can tell about the business. Have you got the guy who does a marathon a week to raise money for charity? What about the woman who's been there for 35 years? If you're saying your people are the difference, what are the stories that show those people are the difference? If you're saying it's your product that's the difference, how can you evidence that? That's what we're looking for in content. And then capital. The question in capital is, what's this worth to you as a business? Not how much should you spend, it's what's it worth to you. So you go right back to the beginning and you say, right, okay, this is what type of company we are. These are the customers we're targeting. This is the context of the industry. Here's our competition. Here's the content that we're going to create. This is who's going to create it. And if we get this right, this will make us X amount of money. And then you can ask the question on the back of that. So, board of directors, chief exec, person who signs off the spend. How much are you going to invest to make that happen? And that's how you audit. That's how we audit when we're looking at digital marketing strategies. We ask all those questions first of all, and it takes weeks to pull that together. It's workshop, it's time, there's research. It takes weeks to pull together. I've lost my clicker. And if you don't do this, so many people just jump straight into wanting to get into tactical activity. Let's plan what we're going to do next week. Take the time and audit first and understand what you're going to do. And then when you get there, you can then start to look at producing strategy. So another quote, this is obviously an image of Sun Tzu. I've never read the book, I'm just taking the quote off the internet. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. Don't jump straight into running a PPC campaign, don't jump straight into search, don't jump straight into social. Sit down and spread everything out that you've got from the audit stage and start to look at it. And then start to pull in other things that you've maybe missed in that. The wider geopolitical scene, what's happening in the world. And I've got an example of this now. We work with Expedia. You probably know this because we tell everybody who's got ears that we work with Expedia. But we work on the .ie website. And a couple of years ago, this happened. And it massively changed what we do for Expedia. Charlie Hebdo in Paris. Then there was a Bataclan attack. Then there was an attack in Belgium on the airport. And then there was in Nice, which I didn't put a picture up of. All of these things have a huge impact on Expedia's business. People stopped traveling from Ireland to some of the most visited destinations in Europe. Paris is a huge visitor destination for Irish travelers, and they stopped traveling. So when we'd done the audit stage and we started looking and started strategizing, we can't just keep hoping that by being number one in Google, we're going to make the numbers go up, up, and up, because no one's traveling. Doesn't matter what we do. If less people are traveling month on month on month, we're not going to help. So the answer when we pulled all that together was to focus on domestic travel. It might seem an obvious thing to do, of course, yeah, but you focus on domestic travel. But Expedia is not necessarily known for focusing on domestic travel. You want to fly to New York, you want to go to Amsterdam, you want to go to Australia, you go to Expedia. You want to go from Dublin to Cork, is Expedia your first choice? So we had to start to change the opinion of that. The other thing with Expedia is it's a very transactional website. You go on, you look for a holiday, you look for a flight, you see a price, you click buy and off you go. It's not known for being a content website so much. So having audited and looked at the wider political picture, we came up with a strategy of focusing on domestic travel, but we had to make it more content focused. We couldn't just hope that by putting more sales up there, people would buy more. So we came up with this concept called Drive Ireland. It's now on the Expedia blog. And Drive Ireland was about trying to reshape the discussion in Irish tourism to get people looking at Expedia. This focuses on content, so you can search by Ulster, Munster, Leinster, Connaught. You can look at regions, you can look at routes. If you go on the site, you can say, I want to go from this place to that place, and it'll give you a route, it'll tell you places you can see along the way, and it starts to really drive content for that. We'll keep coming back to this through each of the sections where I've got another example on that, as to how it works and how it's developed. But it still has a clear capital goal. It's all about trying to drive transactions. So it's not just content for content's sake, it's content to try and achieve their business goals. Another example of strategy was working with Tantastic. Our sister agency, Brand Etiquette, rebranded and changed all the packaging for Tantastic. You may remember, I'm obviously a big Tantastic user, and I was quite involved in this. I was bought into it. And they changed all the packaging from sort of quite pink to this sort of more modern, more fresh look. And then we were given the challenge to try to make it relevant to people and to drive it forward. So the one thing we looked at, which you probably can't see unless you sat right on top of the screen, is this bit on the bottle, which says, live fast, love fast beauty. Or, well, there it is. And we started trying to look at that and say, how do we make this work to connect to the audience? How do we make it reach out to that audience that Tantastic have, which is a slightly younger audience looking for live fast, love fast beauty? And the answer we found through a monkey. This particular, well, it's a gorilla, not a monkey. Don't anyone get, it's a gorilla, not a monkey. Recognize this one? I'll play you a video. This is from 2007. I think there's probably some people in the room who weren't even alive back then, is there? There's a few anyway. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord. Well, I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord. Oh, Lord. Who doesn't like a gorilla playing Phil Collins? I mean, what an ad. So that ad changed Cadbury's dairy milk. The sales transformed. It went up 9% year on year. It won an award at Cannes. If you look at any awards that are ever given for the best ad in British TV history, it always features up there. Now, the bit that you might have missed was this at the beginning. Glass and a half full production, and I think it was there at the end, a glass and a half full of joy. What the agency that worked on that did was they took a position that everybody knew, or even if you didn't know, you probably are aware of from dairy milk, which is the glass and a half full of milk. Try that again. Glass and a half full of milk in every bar. And the reason you know about it, even if you don't know about it, is because it's on the product. And it's been on the Cadbury's product forever, the glass and a half full of milk. And what they did was they said, well, what if glass and a half full of milk is not just about what's in the product, but what if it's a way of life? And that's how they got from how do you market chocolate to a gorilla playing Phil Collins. It was about living life and taking things to the extreme and pushing it forward. And they ran lots of stuff on the back of that. It's just the gorillas ad's probably the bit you remember. So we kind of took that thinking and applied it there and said, well, what if Live Fast, Love Fast Beauty isn't just something that sits on the bottle? What if this is a way of life? And a way of life that really resonates with the target market, the target audience. Now, I don't claim to speak for every woman in the world, but this was my favorite picture on this deck. And it's a bit pixelated there. I've asked many women, several women, do you all lie on bed in your pants eating pizza? Nobody has yet said that they do. If you do, put your hand up, you can be in the next photo shoot. Anybody? Oh, there was only one. Brilliant. Go and see us at the end. You can be in the next photo shoot. So what we tried to do with that was to take Live Fast, Love Fast Beauty, instead of it being a line on the product, and bring it alive as part of the strategy. Now, obviously, that's great, but it has to then have a tactical implementation that means it's going to work, which brings us to tactics. If you're going to have Abraham Lincoln, you've got to have Winston Churchill as well, right? Churchill said, don't confuse good tactics with good luck. Having a great strategy is brilliant. Thinking, Live Fast, Love Fast Beauty is a way of life. That's a brilliant idea. High five, Jess. Brilliant. If you have bad tactics, it's never going to take off. It's never going to get off the ground. So you've got to then start to have a good tactical viewpoint. So to stick with Fantastic, we came up with a multi-touch point campaign. If you start to go and say, look, we're just going to focus on one or two touch points, what you're doing there is building your strategy around hope. If you say, let's just focus on social media, what if social media is not the platform for this to take off? You have to spread it around a little bit. Don't spread yourself too thin. That's a different story. But you have to understand that your audience is in more than one place. They don't just live in one place or on one channel. So you have to make sure you have the tactical implementation that will reach them wherever they are. So we looked at events, goodie bags, blogs, content on social, videography, photography, competitions, bloggers and influencers. Given the fact that I've only got an hour and not all afternoon, we're just going to talk about one part of that, and that's bloggers and influencers. At the event, we, as the Tomorrow Lab, host a series of events called the Tomorrow Lab Presents. We did social media and influencer marketing a couple of weeks ago. It was a hot topic, so I thought I'd cover it again here for any of you not lucky enough to come then and see someone from Social Chain speak, because they showed up at our events. Sorry, I know it's a delicate subject, I'm sorry. So with bloggers and influencers, again, influencer marketing. When I started at the Tomorrow Lab 3 years ago, we didn't talk about influencer marketing. It's not a new concept, but it's certainly got a very new influx of life in the last couple of years. So a lot of people are jumping in going, we need to work with bloggers and influencers. And what they tend to do is either find someone they follow, find someone they think's about right for their campaign, and then go, right, we'll use this influencer, 1 or 2 sometimes, maybe 4 or 5. And that's great. But again, you're hoping that they're going to connect. You're hoping that they're going to be the right people. So we, well, more specifically Jess, came up with this type of tiered approach to it. So we were lucky enough that we had access to Talia Heffernan. I'm so down with the kids, I have no idea who she is. But we had access to Talia as part of this campaign. She is on the bottles, she is on the product, she is the face of the Fantastic. So we had access to Talia, who's got tens of thousands of followers. Someone mentioned yesterday that classes them as a micro-influencer. I would argue in the Northern Ireland context that classes her as a fairly serious influencer. But it depends on where you're focused on. So we had Talia at the top of the tree. So we weren't going out to recruit another Sosumi. We weren't trying to recruit Rihanna, or, well, she wouldn't work for a tan brand, would she? Anyway, you know what I mean. We weren't trying to recruit a top pop star because we already had the top of the tree covered. What we looked at next was trying to cover people who had a great following, but were very particularly Irish. So they would resonate with the audience that we were trying to reach on the island of Ireland. So I've just come back to read the names because most of them, again, I've never heard of. So we worked with Tiffany Bryan, who most of you will know of, Derv Latoll, Lauren Arthurs, Niamh Webb O'Rourke, and Louise Cooney. These people had, depending on what platform you were looking at, they had thousands of followers. Some of them grew quite rapidly during this time. But what we did is we had access to them in a much more involved way. Talia was great, but Talia's got lots of other things on her hands, and we got a couple of posts whenever it fits in with her schedule. That's fine, but you can't build a marketing campaign on someone's management team saying, oh no, it's not suitable for us to put it out this week. You can't work like that. So we worked with the next raft down and built them almost as brand ambassadors over a longer period of time, getting them to share content that was real, that engaged with the brand. We then had this wider number of bloggers, which could have been anything from people with a big social following, or it could have just been people with a blog but without a social presence, or they might have been on YouTube but not Instagram, or Instagram but not YouTube. They weren't quite as big, but what they gave us was a scale. So if you were on Instagram, if you were on social somewhere, you might see Talia share a picture, but then you might see Louise Cooney or Tiffany Bryan share a picture, both within a week of each other. You might also see a large number of smaller bloggers over a 2 or 3 month period, all sharing fantastic products and pictures. Now, the difference is at the bottom end, they got product and nothing else. But they were happy to receive product. They were maybe newer bloggers, younger bloggers, but they were happy and they received it and it was brilliant. And we just said, look, here's some lovely product, take that, share it, put it on, do what you want with it. With these guys, we were a lot more involved with them. But the thing with picking influencers is you have to take time to research them. You can't just go around and go, oh, look, they've got a bit of a following and let's hope for the best. You have to take the time and dig into it, because if you don't, you can get it wrong. So we, more specifically again, Jess, spent a lot of time combing back through the influencers' profiles, looking at if they've worked with other tanning brands, how far away was that, what sort of engagement do they get with posts, all that sort of stuff. And the reason that's important is because if you just take a very superficial glance, you can make some quite simple mistakes. Looking from the outside in, I think someone here has made a massive mistake on another campaign that we weren't involved with. Lethal Bizzle. Many Lethal Bizzle fans in the room? Just one there, two, yeah, we've got a couple, brilliant. If it was Nathan Carter, you'd all be on your feet going, brilliant, we've got Nathan Carter in the presentation. Lethal Bizzle, if you follow him on Snapchat, is a man who loves chicken. He does nothing but eat chicken day and night. He's a beat pop combo, I believe my mother would call it. He's a grime artist. He's a singer, for those of you who are still looking blankly. Some of you might call him a shouter, but he's definitely a singer. So Lethal Bizzle eats chicken day and night. So you can see the conversation in the agency. Someone's gone, we need someone famous with a big following who eats chicken. Lethal Bizzle. Brilliant. So KFC, the well-known chicken brand, I've done a campaign with Lethal Bizzle.
Pow! Yo, this is Lethal Bizzle, obviously. And right now, I'm at KFC and I'm here to review the brand new Nashville hot chicken. I heard it's dead, so let's go and see.
Alright then. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, that's dense, man. Smoky. Cheese!
You're eating it, starts marinating, and then just some real, like,
Pow! Spicy.
oh, that's f***ing hot. Oh my God. Yo! I like spice as well, but yo, I wasn't expecting that.
Succulent. I've never been to Nashville, you know. That's like the birthplace of this new recipe. I heard they do some chicken festival thing over there, so I might have to go and have a look at that, because that's just like heaven for me. Denchnificent. It's too much fire, man. Oi. No, don't say oi, that's a bit rude, isn't it? Yo, that's my review, so I want to hear yours. Comment below, and I'll read out the best ones.
It's such a popular line with the crowd that he pulls up the track after the Nando's bit and says, let's go and play this bit again. Let's go.
Yo, 1, 2, 3, everybody jump, 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 jump.
There's a few heads nodding now. Come on, you're all Lethal Bizzle fans now. Let's see if you can join in as well. Are you ready?
You might see me in a Lambo, camel snapback, Rambo, 500 horses, Django.
2-2 Chicky. Thank you.
See me in a Rari.
Anyone who's spent more than 30 seconds looking at Lethal Bizzle will know that in his most popular song, by chart position, by weeks on the chart, by number of records sold, references Nando's. If you look back on his Snapchat more than about 4 or 5 months, you'll notice that he's been in Nando's. Every bleeding day he's in Nando's, Snapchat in Nando's. Now, KFC will probably say, we're fast food, Nando's are a restaurant. If you are a chicken fan, of which I am one, you've got KFC or Nando's. It's not, oh, one's fast food, one's... That's it. You've got those two options. And when you pick influencers badly, you end up with a campaign where anyone who knows Lethal Bizzle is going to look at that and go, yeah, he's Nando's, man. And all you're doing is spending money helping Nando's out. Anyway, that's my rant over. I just needed to find a way to shoe on a bit of Lethal Bizzle into the presentation. The other important thing with tactics, once you've got through that and you understand who you're going to target, whether it's influencers, whether it's social, there's a really key part of what you need. And it's a very old school thing, a really old school thing. But I'm a huge fan of these. And if you don't have them, I think your marketing is on track to fail. And it's a wall planner. And it sounds really simple, but all the best marketing campaigns I've seen, all the companies I've worked in who do this really well, have something like this stuck up on a wall. And what it does is it gives visibility and it creates accountability. Now, I love Trello. I organize my entire life through Trello. Reminders of things to do, shopping lists, all that sort of thing. But that's just for me. When you put all your marketing activity on Trello, and yeah, you get a notification through, that's fine. I think I get about 300 notifications a day. If I'm busy, if I'm in the car, if I'm doing something else, just get rid of it, right? If you have a campaign planner on your wall, and I can see that next Friday I have an action with my name against it that needs doing, that tactic becomes an activity. You're accountable to not just yourself because your name's on it, but to your team and to everybody you work with. And this old school tool is often the difference between having a great strategy and great tactics and delivering it properly as activity. One thing we did at the Tomorrow Lab, this is for Expedia as part of the Drive Island thing, and you don't need to be able to read all the information there. But as you get into tactics, this is where we start to create content plans. So what we did was look at all the possible themes we could come up with for domestic travel and for the Drive Island site. And then you start to cluster them around different themes in different areas. So you can see we've got events like the Six Nations and things, we've got travel, we've got food, we've got Irish beaches, winter and summer, surfing, that sort of thing. And you cluster all your content together into different themes. Once you've got that, you can then start going back to your wall planner and start planning it all out into different places. So you start to see, this is how our tactics is going to become activity. We know what we're going to do, we know what we're going to talk about, and then we start to plan it where everybody can see it. One important part of going from tactics into activity and creating content on any channel is what we call finding your inch. And it's about trying to be a little bit different in your content. And there's a reason why that this is important. And to do this, I'm going to ask you all to stand up. I'm sorry. I know you're going, oh God, not stand up. Right, we're going to play heads or tails. Has anyone ever played this before? Right, I have a question. Twitter. Number of tweets per second, do you think it's more or less than 20,000 tweets per second worldwide? If you think it's more, stick your hands on your head. If you think it's less, stick your hands on your bum. All right, we all made a decision. There's a bit of changing going on. More or less than 20,000. If you've got your hands on your head, sit down. 7,637 tweets per second. These aren't my stats. I've not been sat counting. These are stats from internetlivestats.com. So if you don't believe me, you can go and check. Right, so we've only got 2 people left. YouTube. Number of video views, not uploads, views in 1 second. More or less than 10,000. Hands on your head if you think it's more. Hands on your bum if you think it's less. Right. It's 69,502. If you got your hands on your head, stay standing. Can you catch? Nope. I can't throw, obviously. We have a winner. That game finished a little bit quicker than I thought. Yeah, round of applause for the gentleman over there. Instagram has only 785 posts per second, and there are 60,677 Google searches in a second. That isn't just to show you that I know how to use internet live stats. Oh, I forgot, sorry, did I not see you? All right, let's see if I can make a better attempt at throwing this one. You ready? Good catch, Adam. All right, the reason I show you this is to tell you that the internet is awash with shite. That's the exact reason I tell you that, right? The market you are trying to put your content out to is full of all those tweets, all those Instagram posts, all those Google searches, all of that shit that's out there, and you're trying to compete with that. And you cannot stand out from the shit by doing exactly the same shit as what everybody else is doing. It's that simple. You really can't. So it's not about trying to be, but that's why when you do the audit, we start with company first, because you understand what your company does differently, how you do it, what is really unique to you. And then you put that into your content and you use it to stand out. That's not saying everyone has to run off and be Paddy Power. That's not saying everybody has to try and be really different. It's about trying to stand out from the crowd. Now, you say this, when nothing goes right, go left. Just be a little bit different. And there's a couple of examples here that I'm going to fly through just to kind of show you what I mean. If you've seen me present before, you may have seen these examples, so please don't spoil it for everybody else and remember to laugh at the right times. So, if you don't know what a first-time buyer looks like, these are all from 4 major banks, financial institutions that you'll have heard of. I'm not going to tell you who, but they are from them. So this is what a first-time buyer looks like on one of their websites, which is sitting on the floor by a box. Here's a first-time buyer from another website, which is sitting on a floor by a box. Here's another major financial institution sitting on a floor by a box, and there's another one. Okay, they're eating pizza, but they're sat on the floor by a box. They all look the same. What about in the perfume industry? You got a model or someone famous here with a big name there and the product here. There's, oh look, a product there and somebody famous or a model here. Let's see what the next one is. It's exactly the same ad. Right? It's just different people in it. What about this one? Oh look, at the move side, famous product, famous product. That's an industry that spends millions, probably billions on advertising, and all they do is produce the same ads as everybody else. Cars. There's a Volvo driving uphill away from a rugged scene. What about a Bentley that's driving uphill away from a rugged scene? What about a BMW that's driving uphill away from a rugged scene? You see where this is going, don't you? What about a Porsche? Ah, the Porsche is parked, facing uphill from a rugged scene. What about a Citroen, the worst car ever invented? If you've got one of those, please leave now. Driving uphill away from a rugged scene. They're almost identical. And this is what I mean when I say the internet is full of shite. This is what you see. It's all the same from everybody. Now, there's a bit of a hero of mine, a guy called Mark Ritson, or Professor Mark Ritson. He writes in Marketing Week. If you want to see what's going to be in my next presentation, sign up to his column on Marketing Week. I read that and then try and filter it into my next presentation. But this is what he says. We're entering interesting new territory in which small, cool startup brands with a backstory, distinctive founder, and proper brand mission are now seriously threatening the global behemoths. I love the word behemoth and say it wrong every time. But what he's saying here is that if you can stand out a little bit, you don't need a bigger budget than everybody else. You just need to do something that only you can do to stand you out from the rest of the market. And you can't do that if all you're doing is looking at your competitors and trying to copy what they're doing. So, here's an example. I get probably 4 phone calls a year from some energetic, usually a young lad, who says, "Hello, Andy. I've started my own fashion brand up and I want Tomorrow Lab's help." Yeah, that's great. So Tomorrow Lab comes with a fee attached, so you have a chat with them, you try and help people out the best they can. Usually between the phone call and the meeting a couple of weeks later, the brand's gone out of business. Fashion is a ridiculously tough market. You've got brands producing stuff by the ton weight in China, shipping it across. You can't just produce something of crap quality and sell it at a higher price and hope for the best. You've got Primark selling stuff for £2 or £3. You've got all the high street retailers, all the fashion brands, Amazon are selling it. It's a horrific market to crash into. I went to the Power of Video 2 weeks ago, was it now? Did anybody else go? I was blown away by David Johnson, I think he's called, who just talks about outside in. And again, I wanted to give him a massive plug because I think everyone should get involved. He's launched a fashion brand, but he's found his inch. He's found how he can be a little bit different. Now, he's done it for real reasons that come from the inside out. David wants to help the homeless. So he started out with We Are Oi. Outside in, it means. He has a backstory that I'm not going to go through, but it involved he met some homeless people and it really struck with him and he wanted to do something to help. So he came up with this concept. So this is all very similar, you know, cool fashion brand and hats and cool kids in urban settings, right? But on his website, he talks about vision plus action equals movement. And he's already setting himself apart from all the other t-shirt brands coming out. Wear one, share one. You buy a t-shirt or a hat from David, from outside in, you get it in a box. First of all, when was the last time anyone bought a t-shirt that came in a box? Right? So it's different. Then, in the box, you get a flyer telling you how to do it, and you get a hat, a beanie, to give to a homeless person to help keep them warm. You buy one, you wear one, you share one. Beautiful concept. This is mine, that's not my hand, it's somebody else's, promise you. My hands aren't that feminine. So I bought a t-shirt and you get one to share, and all of a sudden it stands him apart from all the other t-shirt operators, all the other new clothing brands that are out there. What he found is when nothing goes right, go left. He found his inch to be a little bit different. Now he's launching next week. This isn't a sales plug for him, but We Are Oi. Please go and have a look because he's doing really, really great things. I fell in love with the whole thing. I have a t-shirt now, that was it, and I'll be buying many more. That's sales plug over. So once you've done the tactics and you've got the plan, you've then got to get into the activity. And this is where most people start. Let's get the PPC up and running. So now you've spent a couple of weeks planning and getting it right, you're in a much better position. Another famous quote monster from the internet is Albert Einstein. I couldn't really find a quote for activity, so I found this one instead. Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it. Einstein said that. So with tactics for Tantastic, I obviously clearly wrote this line, bra off, hair up, sweats on. I honestly have no idea what that means, but I'm sure it means a lot to everybody. I think this was the best performing post in the entire campaign. Yep. So it's about creating content that resonates with the audience. What we let the influencers do was create content that they wanted to, so we didn't go down the lethal Bizzle experience of saying, here's how you have to do it. We just sent them the product, gave them a few guidelines, a few hashtags that we wanted them to use, and set off and said, make your own content. So, Tiff Bryan, that one, there's Louise Cooney. It's not so much natural, but it's very Louise Cooney and looks like a lot of other things that she does. Lauren Arthurs with a stand down. Why does everybody stand like this when they have the picture taken on Instagram? I don't know, but if anyone can tell me, I'll be around afterwards. So we let them create content that was right for them across this planned phase of activity. What I often hear at this point, though, is it's a question we often get asked in Northern Ireland. Look, Andy, Expedia, massive travel brand, big budget. I get that. Fantastic, look, really photogenic. Everybody, fantastic, great stuff. What about we make perforated paper and we sell it to councils? Yeah, okay, I get that. Not everything's as interesting. But Hill attached. Does anyone know Hill Engineering down in Newry? Big company, lovely company. There's somebody waving about, yes, we know someone who knows Hill. They make hitches. If you've ever seen a big digger out on the street banging holes into the road, you've got the arm that comes down, you've got the bucket at the bottom, and you've got a hitch in the middle that connects the two. That's how interesting their product is. I can see you all going, I'm asleep with my eyes open. That was amazing. Right, that's what their product is. So how the hell do you then make that marketable? The answer for Hill was we went old school. Now, I thought this was going to be hilarious until I came to Digital DNA, and the whole conference seems to be run by USB sticks. So it kind of blew it all out of the water. In here, what we created was the Tephra, which is their #1 hitch. Now, if you're really interested, this is automated. So once it's on, you don't need a guy to get out of the cab, bang something with a hammer to try and get it out, kick it off, click it onto the next one, hope he doesn't lose a finger. This one's automated. Clicks on, clicks off, job done. And it's a USB stick. Isn't it great? So we created a load of them, probably the most expensive USB stick ever created. They were about $5 a time. That was probably the hardest part of the whole campaign, was getting the sign-off for that. And then we sent them out to clients. Well, they sent them out to clients. Now, social media, as you can imagine, on a hitch, the Twitter feed isn't exactly bouncing around with thousands of retweets and loads of comments and shares. It's industrial, it's B2B. Their average customer is dad and a couple of lads in a family engineering firm. You know, the sort, Johnson's and Sons or whatever, and there's 2 sons, they maybe have a couple of subbies come in. So Twitter's not exactly somewhere that bounces. People started sending pictures of this in. 28 likes and 5 retweets was unheard of. And they're not just all the staff in the office liking and retweeting it, that's genuine customer likes. And then it went on tour. The campaign was called Tephra on Tour. Hill, unsurprisingly by this picture, were pushing into France as a new market. There's the Tephra making an appearance by the Eiffel Tower. They're in Australia, there's the Tephra on Bondi Beach. That's New York, another market they're trying to crack into. There's the Tephra in Times Square. And then this one, people who'd got it started sending in their own content. This is what the hitch looks like in real life, which it's a bit of an old one and it's well worked. And then the guy's used a little bit of perspective. He's used his top 2 inches, put it there, and he's got a lovely picture of the USB in with that. 15 likes, 3 retweets. What you don't see on that is somebody then came on and went, oh, I don't think I'd use a Hill hitch because of X, Y, and Z. 4 different people, none of whom worked at Hill, jumped straight into that Twitter conversation and started saying, look, mate, actually, this product's the industry leader. If you've got this unit, you really need to use this one. The customers started doing the selling job for Hill. We'll move on to Expedia a little bit. Where are we? Right. I'm going to talk over this video. If I can work out how to mute it. There we go. Because we were talking about Expedia being very transactional, we had to get more content related. We didn't want to get into a fight with the tourist boards and try and do what they did. But we had to try and show Ireland, like the people who know the least about tourism in Ireland, I guarantee you, are the Irish, right? They think that, why would you go on holiday here? Oh God, you wouldn't go there, it always rains. What would you do that for? Everybody hates where they live, seemingly. But we then created a video, we actually had to get an Australian guy in to shoot this because I don't think we could find anybody Irish to do it, who just went and caught these amazing scenes of Ireland. Now, it's different, it's a bit slow moving, it's just very scenic and very panoramic, it's more of a film than an ad. But we created this as part of this Expedia campaign to try and push it out there, to try and create an emotional connection. Now, I'm running out of time, so I'm not going to show you the whole video, but you get the picture. And we're back to talking about fab. And what we talk about with fab isn't just being fab and groovy, man. It stands for features, advantages, and benefits. And what we try and do with fab content is to try and get people talking about emotional benefits and thinking emotionally rather than thinking logically. Because the logical brain can rationalize you out of doing anything. The emotional brain is the thing that puts your hand in your bag to grab your purse straight away and pay. And that's the bit you want to tap into. So if you were looking, I'd say Tantastic, and these aren't product features, but if you have a product and you say, look, Tantastic, Tan, we've got 10 minerals in our product which help it absorb quickly. If somebody releases a product that's got 15 minerals in it that helps it absorb quickly, the human brain says the 15 one must be better than the 10 one. Because that's how your brain works. It just goes, oh, that's a bigger number, it must be better. So if you just talk about features, you only get stuck with someone outflanks you talking about they've got a little bit more feature or another knob, another whistle. You then got the advantage and you say, well, okay, well, we've got 10 minerals which help it absorb quicker overnight. Okay, so 10 minerals that help it absorb quicker overnight versus 15 minerals. You suddenly start to go, actually, yeah, I can see that. That's all right, yeah. Because if it absorbs quicker overnight, don't get it all over my sheets, and yeah, okay, I can see that. But if you can then get an emotional benefit to go with that feature and that advantage, which is something like, look amazing, feel amazing, get that healthy glow that you've always wanted. So you suddenly start to talk to people in an emotional way. And once you've got your features, advantages, and your benefits, you then tell the story the other way. So you say, get that healthy, amazing glow you've always wanted with our rapid absorbing overnight tan, with our 10 minerals that make it happen. And when you tell the story that way, benefits, advantages, features, it becomes much more powerful. So what we're trying to do with that Expedia video was get the benefit out of traveling around Ireland. What we tried to do with the fantastic stuff of Live Fast, Love Fast Beauty was the benefit to that life of, look, it was about girls having fun. It was about going out and just living your life, not worrying about having to tan quickly, or if you didn't tan on Thursday, can you still go out at the weekend? We talked about the quick tan and the mitts. But if you just talk about it coming with an absorption mitt, nobody cares. So it's all about trying to, oh, come on in. No? Okay. So it's all about trying to get people to focus on the benefits of the product. And if you get them emotionally, you've got them. Now, into the results. A quote for this came from Henry Ford. Half the money I spend on marketing is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. Everyone's heard that quote banged into them, usually by a finance director who goes, I know what sales do, but I don't know what marketing does. You just spend money, and half the money I spend on marketing is wasted, and you just want to punch them in the head. But we've all heard it, right? So this is a couple of stats from Hill. You can't see that. That's the engagement. What you really need to look at is it's just shot through the roof. That's social analytics for when the campaign launched. More importantly than the campaign launching and social analytics going really well, this very old thing, which some of you might remember, started ringing. They got inbound inquiries from the social campaign that they ran. Not just inquiries, their sales team got 40 appointments. 40 appointments in industrial B2B marketing is mind-blowing. Trust me when I tell you, it's mind-blowing. And more than that, they're in the process of closing hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of business on the back of investing a £5 a time in a USB stick. And I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of pounds. They've been trying to get into a big plant hire shop who wouldn't talk to them for years. They saw the campaign, they saw the bounce around it. They picked up the phone and rang Hill and said, can you come and talk to us about this product? It looks fantastic. They got inbound leads on the back. I'm going to have to take Kimmy down now. She's distracting me. The work with Tantastic. This was harder to quantify because the sales happen in third-party retailers. So these are slightly different things. We got 1.6 million reach on the campaign, which got it out to the target market. Bearing in mind the product had changed, the packaging had changed. We needed to reach a lot of people to tell them that a lot of things had happened, that this had happened and you need to see it. And I'm not even sorry about this picture. We got 83,000 engagements. If you type into Google and look for social media engagements, you just get hateful stuff. So I went for a nice sparkly ring instead. With Expedia, the campaigns are only recently launched, but already the Drive Island hub, because nobody knows to think of Expedia at this stage, we're doing outreach. We're trying to get it out into different publications so they talk about Drive Island as somewhere to go and look for driving and holiday locations. We've already had coverage in the Irish Post, Donegal Daily, Lovin.ie. If you're into SEO, this might mean something to you. This is trust flow and citation flow. I'm not going to bore you with what those two things mean, but as a general rule, the bigger that number is, the better it is. And again, you'll just have to trust me when I tell you 48 and 44 are amazing numbers to be shooting out for. If you want to know more about trust flow and citation flow, go and talk to Niall, who's just round there. He's the ginger fella who doesn't smile all that often. If you go and talk to Niall, he'll tell you all about that at length. And the important thing with results is that A-star isn't actually a linear process. It's the circular one. This is where you go, ooh. Okay, maybe not then, right. It's a circular process. You take the results and you feed it back into what you're doing again. And this is one thing where I have a little bit of a rant to make. We were talking about this briefly yesterday on one of the panels, about fear of failure. A lot of the time, there's a lot of old thinking about which says that failure is a bad thing. And it filters down to us all. And we've all done it. We've all gone in to a meeting with a manager when a campaign has tanked, absolutely fallen flat on its face. If you use Facebook ads, there's over 200 different metrics you can get to measure that campaign. Google Analytics has got metrics for everything. I can look at any campaign, no matter how disastrous that campaign is, and I can, within an hour, produce you a report that will make you think this was the best campaign ever. And you go in and you look and go, wow, this really worked, this really worked. And the same finance director who 10 minutes ago was telling you half the money on marketing spends, half is wasted, looks up from the bottom of his glasses and says, how many more units did we sell? Or how many more inquiries did we get? And it blows your credibility right out of the water. If stuff goes wrong, go into the meeting, and it's really difficult, it's awful, it's horrible. Go in and say, this is how it worked, and it didn't work. But here's what we've learned from that, and here's what we're going to do different next time. And that's why A-Star's not linear. You don't get to the end and go, woohoo, we've done it. You get to there and you say, right, we got the results in, and it didn't work. Here's why it didn't work, or why we think it didn't work, and here's what we're going to change next time. Because we're going to move on, and we're going to learn from that, and we're going to get better. And you have to have that honesty, because it's really difficult to do. You know when the miserable person whose door you've got to bang on to go in, and you know they're not going to be happy with the money that they've wasted. But to keep your credibility, and to keep investing in marketing, you've got to be honest and say, we made a mistake and we did it, and this is what we're going to do. Or ideally, if you keep using this, you won't have as many of those conversations, because you'll be filtering the learning back through and you'll be going and going, we smashed it, what are we doing next? We smashed it, give us more money for marketing. Because that's how you end up getting more money in your marketing budget, is doing what they want you to do, smashing the targets, hitting what they want you to do, and then they get confidence to give you more and more and more money. So just before I finish, what you probably didn't know, I didn't have time to sort this slide out. Of the 5 quotes that I put up, this is a really ugly slide because I forgot to organise it before I left. Does anybody know which one of there's only one of those quotes is actually real that I used today. 4 of them are entirely made up. Does anybody want to guess which one's actually the real one? Shoot. That's true, but Einstein never said that, so I'm saying that's not true. Abraham Lincoln, do you know what? He never said it. If it takes you 6 hours to chop down a tree, you're doing it wrong. That's the only way that quote should have been written. Anyone else? Sun Tzu, tactics before strategy is the noise before defeat. The rest of them are misattributed or entirely made up. The bottom one is actually a quote about advertising, and it was John Wanamaker, not Henry Ford. So don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it. Thanks very much.